Well, welcome to Dubai. I'm Landon Derentz. I'm Senior Director of the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center here in the Energy Transition Hub of the COP28 experience at Expo. We're really excited to be bringing world leaders, executives, and thought leaders together to have conversations about how we're dealing with the energy system we have today and how that translates to the energy system we want to have in the future as the world comes together to think through the climate challenge. To do that today, I'm really excited to be joined by Majid Jafar, who is the CEO of Crescent Petroleum. Majid, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you, Landon.
You're a corporation that is around the Emirates, that's based in the Emirates. What's your experience so far as all these people coalesce here in Dubai and come together for this conference?
So I think it's been an incredible COP meeting so far. It's the largest ever by some margin. I think it's 40% larger than Sharm el-Sheikh last year, 80% larger than Glasgow the year before. I think it's also the most inclusive COP, and we've seen already huge concrete commitments, not just pledges, but actual programs, starting first and foremost with the $30 billion new fund that's been established by the UAE with the likes of BlackRock and Brookfield and other major investors, and the aim to get that to $250 billion for climate finance, particularly targeting the Global South. So I think that was a very exciting start. We've seen a pledge of getting to 3 times, trebling the renewables, trebling nuclear energy, and Secretary Kerry was very involved in that, and doubling energy efficiency. And we're not even halfway through the meeting yet. So I think, the third point is for me, I've seen it's been the most ambitious COP by far.
I want to come back to the Global South in a second, but in this big Congress of, I think it's somewhere around 80,000 people, you have a unique contingent of corporations, in particular the national oil companies, coming to make pledges and make commitments on this ambitious agenda and take action. Why is that novel, and what do you expect to be coming out of programs like the COP28 Oil and Gas Decarbonization Charter that was announced earlier this week?
So I think in some previous COP meetings, most notably COP26 in Glasgow 2 years ago, we had an exclusion, a deplatforming, if you like, of not just oil and gas, but also coal and nuclear. So the industry is responsible for 90% of global energy. We're not even invited to the conversation. So it's no surprise that, in the view of many, it was a failure in terms of concrete actions. There was some progress made on the finance side, but the energy sector wasn't even there. And ultimately, energy and climate are two sides of the same coin. It's one nexus. Ultimately, it's the consumption of energy by the whole global population that is driving emissions. So I think Dr. Sultan, as the COP president, has the unique convening power, and the UAE, of course, to bring together all these corporate leaders. And so the Global Decarbonization Accelerator has different strands. One is oil and gas, and we as Crescent Petroleum proud to be a signatory to that among 50 other companies. But there are also going to be ones for agriculture, for building materials, for aviation fuels. So the key sectors really bringing together the corporate leaders and a concrete plan of action for each. So I think that is something unique and exciting about this COP, which can hopefully be built on going forward.
It'll be really interesting to watch this kind of system-wide approach to rethinking how we're doing business as usual. This is the second COP in 2 years in the region. And in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt at COP27, I think there was an maybe even unanticipated moment where the Global South really had its voice come to bear. The Middle East is at the nexus of the Global South, of Asia, of Africa. What's your experience, and how do we effectively move and marshal a global platform, global interest to make change on climate?
Sure. So in terms of UN regions, last year was Africa and this year is Asia, but you're absolutely right. Both are Arab countries in the Middle East region, which is great for our region. I think this dichotomy you're having, this North-South divide, is real and is concerning. And this is where the UAE's convening power has really tried to bridge that gap. Today, we have 1 billion people in the OECD consuming more energy than 7 billion in the developing nations, the other 7 billion. And of course, the majority of the emissions up there, because it is a stock that matters, not the flow, are from those more developed countries. But in those developed countries, emissions have been falling for decades in the United States and the EU. And yet they only seem to want to spend the money at home. So you got the Inflation Reduction Act, which is amazing, but it's, a lot of money spent in the United States. The EU responded with its own response within the EU, almost like a trade war between the two at the expense of the global south. And we had not seen the committed 100 billion, which is nowhere near enough, come through. So last year, the language changed and became a language of reparation. The South saying, you know what, you caused this, we're suffering from this, you're going to have to pay for it. And so we did see the launch of the Loss and Damage Fund here with some commitment from the United States and others. But I think even more exciting is the tens of billions that have been committed now to real climate finance with the private sector in developing countries.
So as we close out this COP and keep moving forward, what does success look like, and how do we maintain momentum going forward to COP29?
So I think the focus on methane emissions for our industry is a very big step. And the U.S. government has responded with its own regulations this week, and Vice President Harris was here on that day as well. I think most fundamentally, it's inclusion of all the industries and especially of the global south. This is the first COP where I think they feel they've been part of setting the agenda and not just invited to a conversation and told what to do. So I think continuing with that ethos going forward is what's going to solve this. The climate change challenge will be won or lost in the developing countries. It's where the growth in populations and economy and therefore emissions are. And that's where the focus needs to be.
Well, Majid, I wish you a fruitful COP. Thank you so much for joining us at the Global Decarbonization
Thank
Accelerator.
you. We're very much looking forward to the rest of your own Global Energy Forum, which is, I think, the leading energy event here. And that's not just a plug. We've experienced it firsthand. And we're very much looking forward to the next couple of days together.
Great. We look forward to it as well. Thanks.
Thank you.